Hey, and welcome back to another Revit video. In this Revit video, we're going to look at documenting stairs. So we've looked at a ton of things with stairs when it comes to modeling, codes, you name it, tons of different things. So I really want you to watch those videos first, familiarize yourself with what stairs are, how to model them, get them looking right before we start getting into the documenting, because this is where we have made the magic, believe me, but this is where everything goes onto paper and then we get things built the way it really should be. So there are lots of important things to take into account prior to this point. So I would recommend you check that out. But before we get into it, if at any point in this video you happen to learn something, which I hope you do, please demolish that like button. Also consider subscribing if you enjoy this kind of content. Okay, so we've got this staircase. We've worked out all the levels and everything like that. And so now it's time to document. Very important now. So let's first go into our sheet. So basically, what are we going to do here? This is a default sheet, default template. Everything is default. So nothing that you need to worry about having something specific. And all I've done so far is add in our level 1. Get the scale and everything. And obviously, I will say this is just a bit too small. I need to get this scale up. But I will say the first thing we want to do is create a view template. And we want a view template for all of our stair plans as well as our sections, which we will get to soon. So let's go here and say, okay, architecture plan, that's a good start. I'll go ahead and just duplicate this. And I want to call this vertical circulation, something like that, basically delineated from a regular plan. Show you why in a minute, because this does matter. Ultimately, it could be an enlarged plan because that's essentially what it is. But there are a few things here that I want to make sure that we have. Well, let's go ahead and click OK, and that's good. So yeah, nothing changed, but I have this view template. And then I might want to make sure that all of these views fall under that same view template. That's really important. Okay, cool. Another thing that I want to do is make sure that the type of view that these are of course floor plans, but not necessarily just enlarged floor plans, because of course that's what they are. These are going to be an enlarged plan from an overall plan. That's the point here, but they're going to end up being callouts. Now these are their own views, but we can make references later. Don't worry about that. I don't have an overall plan to work with. That's totally why that we're doing it this way. But what I mean is this plan is considered a floor plan view. Now, that's fine, it works, but for organization purposes down the road, we want to actually make something else. So let's do floor plan dash vertical circulation. So what does this do? Well, this means that I can filter out this type of view in other views, other floor plan views that don't necessarily matter, or that's not an overall, or I don't want to see this type of a call out. Okay, easy, done, we're good there. And so that just means that I can now focus on the template itself. So let's go back here. And so first of all, I want to make sure that I come in here and I can see, well, yeah, the scale is a bit off. I probably want to double that, at least so an eighth. And obviously this will vary based on the size of your stair and your call out and everything. Something else that I like to do is make sure the detail level is at least medium. You're going to see everything you need to at medium. If you want to go to fine, you can. Not a huge difference. Parts, don't care about. Visibility, this is where everything starts to look right. We start to have the ability to make things look right. And so there are a few things that I like to do. Again, this is all kind of up to you. There are a few things that I like to do, and that is stairs. I want to change some of these default settings. Obviously, with stairs, we can see that all of these above are currently checked. And before I uncheck these, I want to show you what we're looking at. You can see all these above lines. Like right now, this is level 1, and my stair only goes up to this cut line. So the main thing to be aware of, if we're going to speak kind of an overview here, we want to make sure that when we're documenting our stair, we capture the elevations of all of these different landings. And landings could be the level itself or the actual landings on the stairs. Not only that, but we want to make sure that we capture the number of risers and treads and their dimensions that are a part of every stair. You could maybe get away with calling it out once and saying it's typical, but I don't like to do that necessarily, because I want to make sure I have the exact amount in every place. And of course, we have to deal with handrails and all that kind of stuff. So back to the sheet, let's go ahead and address this from a visibility graphic standpoint. Obviously, I have all my above lines I don't want to see, but we'll do this in one swoop. Coming over here to stair, obviously, I don't like all these above lines. I don't think they're necessary because we're going to eventually work our way up in floor plan to look down and capture everything that we need to capture. So I don't need to see anything above because we'll ultimately capture everything. So I don't want to see that. Also, when it comes to riser lines and nosing lines, if I just accept this, then we're going to see like double lines for all the stairs. And if we're looking straight down, there's something you don't see, and that would be the riser line itself, because the nosing typically, if it's an angled nosing, of course, will stick out beyond the riser lines. If it's not, then it doesn't matter. You don't have to go through this step. You have a completely vertical riser, and you don't have to worry about that at all. Then, but the safe thing I like to do is to uncheck our riser lines so we just see our nosing lines. And now I don't have all the rails modeled, and I don't care about that necessarily. We'll get to that later. But something else I like to do in a similar vein is go to railings and turn all of the above off as well. I don't want to see all the above rails. We'll deal with the rails later. So I'll click OK. This is what I need to deal with in the beginning. And look at this. Look how clean this is. So what is this telling me? This is telling me this is on my level 1, and obviously I need to call out on elevation here, and then I can see I have my number of risers, and we will deal with that, don't worry. Okay, so with that said, I'm still at an 1/8. Obviously I need to make sure that I update this to a 1/4. There we go. And medium. Cool. So look at this, that double in size. I can start to see things. I actually want to introduce a crop box. I want to see the crop box. I want to be able to pull this in and start to limit the size of my view. This is nothing new. I'm sure you know how to do this. Not worried about that. But overall presentation, that's a good start. I don't really care about where this is yet. We'll deal with that later. So, okay, I have this here. I like to put my sections be the first thing kind of tightest in, and then dimension out beyond that. So you'll notice that this ends up being a lot of personal preference. And this is personal preference because I've done a lot of stairs. I have documented lots. And while it's tedious, I've made some pushes to do different things, whether it's just a different detail component, different families, things that we can add automation to make this a bit easier. Obviously, copying and pasting is a huge thing that we'll get to. So I actually want to skip this first level and go straight to the second level where we can do the majority of our documentation. So level 2, let's go ahead and drag our level 2 in here. And again, because this is all a part of the same template, I have everything the same size. Of course, I need to deal with the crop and everything. This is all typical. If you received this plan from a callout, which I recommend, I did not do that, but if you did, then this would already be mostly where you want it to be. So that's why we're having this issue. So cool. And something I like to do always is to align my stair views, because think about it, it's vertical. It's going to make a lot more sense to anyone reading this, the contractor, whatnot. If you want to try and translate this, it's so easy to do, and you might as well try. And this will work if the stair is offset or it lengthens and all of that. So I'm going to hide this crop region, and we can see, hey, this is looking good. Don't need this all the way down here. Bring this in. Okay, we're looking pretty good right now. Okay, so we've got them all on the sheet, and you can see this level 5 here. When I do align this, it's longer, and it works all the same. It's aligned, it looks good, it's the way I want. So I do specifically want to work within this level 2 as a starter, because it's actually, let's go ahead and do level 3, because it's a perfect switch back. It's kind of what you would typically see in most egress stairs. So, and with that, we have all of our sections, but let's actually do the same thing with our sections. I'm going to go ahead and make the view template, place them on the sheet, because that's important too. When I come in here to section 1, obviously name them too. These are really important. Name these things what they are. Even if this is stair 1, section 1, at least it is named correctly, that type of a thing. So I want to come in here, and again, I want to do the exact same thing with this kind of a view template. I don't want to use the same view template, but we can start from any sort of a section, an architectural section, that's fine. But I want to do section and then maybe vertical circulation, because I do want to have the ability to filter this out later, that type of a thing. And again, I want to probably use a 1/4, but I think an 1/8 would be just fine. And I want to actually do the exact same things when it comes to visibility graphics with my stairs and rails, because I want everything to appear the same, and you basically expect to see the same. There's not really going to be above, but nonetheless, that's the things that we don't really need to worry about seeing. Okay, and then finally rails as well. We don't want to see the above or beyond, anything like that. Okay, cool. So I have both of these. I want to make sure these are both within the view template, section, vertical circulation. And then one more time here, this view itself is a wall section. And because I want to have the filter ability, I want to make sure that this is not a wall section, but also a wall section that is specific to vertical circulation. And with that, that means I can now filter these out of views because they're going to show up in every single view. I don't need this. I actually don't want this section to show up anywhere. The only place I want this section to show up, and again, this is personal preference. You can have it show up everywhere. It doesn't matter, but it will by default show up everywhere. The only place I want to see these sections are within this sheet and on these stair plans. That's the only place I want to see it. That's the only place you need to see it. In my personal opinion, just take that with a grain of salt, kind of everything here, because that's all my opinion. Okay, so with this, let's specifically look at level 2, or actually level 3. I want to make sure and place these on that they're both within vertical circulation. We'll put them on the sheets and be able to move on. Here we go. And obviously we can see, yeah, we probably do want this view template at a quarter, just like the stairs. It makes more sense to do that. And the nice thing about a view template is whenever I change this here, it will change it everywhere this is applied. Totally the reason why. And just like when we looked at moving and aligning all these stairs, we can do the exact same thing with the stair sections. We can see we will snap. Of course, we'll snap to this guy. So what I like to do is pull this down and make sure that we are snapping there to our actual model. That's very important. And then I can always move this back and we're good to go. So we basically have the bones. And this is typically what I would do. I would lay it out like this. To the point where we're happy with what we have everything that we need, but now it's time to like really truly detail this out. Okay, and like I said before, because I don't want to clutter up your screen, let's go to level 3 here, and we can work with level 3. And so the main thing is, well, what's important? Figuring out what is important, the information that we need. And that is specifically the elevations of landings. We already said this. The elevations of landings are very important, so we want to make sure we achieve all of them. And so how do we do that? Well, we can go to annotate and then spot elevation. I don't want to get cute with this at all. If you want this to be from a certain level or whatever it might be, that's totally fine. I definitely do. And so in case we want to do that, we could do target relative. Here we go. We could be from a specific level because this is level 3. A lot of times what I'll do is literally just keep it at our project because this is 28 feet. It is what it is, that kind of a thing. And so I'm perfectly happy doing that. And again, this is personal preference. I like to use the target width dot leader. I have a different one that I use, but essentially it's the exact same thing because it gives us an actual elevation with our marker that we always like to see. And of course, there's a leader involved with it, so you can have the leader, you can not, that kind of a thing. Real easy, it looks good. And so, but of course, I want to do the exact same thing, but for this particular landing. Now, I really never worry about what these elevations are. I don't try and shoot for an elevation, and that is assuming my stair is modeled correctly. Of course, that's very important. I actually know that they are modeled correctly because I modeled them, and I have checked that they go from the correct level to the correct level. So this is totally fine. This is going to happen all the time. And so what's the next important thing? Well, we need to start dimensioning our stair, of course. There's more than that we need to worry about because whenever we dimension our stair, we're going to have to dimension not only the stair, but the shaft and that the stair is within. So to make sure that the stair fits in. And so with that, how would we start to do this? Well, a lot of times I might start by hiding my railings, things like that. Because I don't care about the railings initially, but then obviously we need to have them there. But when it comes to the stair itself, a lot of times I'll go to thin lines because we're not working with a lot of area in between these, and we kind of minimize this the best we can. So let's go ahead and take our dimension. And so we want to make sure and capture multiple axes. I guess you could call it like an X and a Y axis. Basically the length of the stair and the width and each individual stair width and all of that. So how do we do that? And what's the best way? Well, you can start with either side. So basically what I want to do is I want to capture the entire length of the stair run, specifically the stair run. And then I want to take this stair run and I want to capture the actual width at this point. So the width is there and I can come down and I'm done. Cool, that's one. And what is that telling me? Well, that's telling me that I have this amount of my stair run and then I have that amount as I guess you could call it a landing, that type of a thing. And that's important to have. And so let's go ahead and do that exact same thing on this side. Awesome. So with that, we're looking good. And the reason you need to do it on different sides only is if the stair runs vary. A lot of times they will vary because a lot of times you're not going to have the perfect switchback that's mirrored and everything like that. So you might have to do this. Obviously, you can see we have an additional landing or an additional tread length in our landing up here. And then let's do the exact same thing, but with the width. So I'm going to grab our width here. And of course, this is a perfect example of where I want to hide the railing. I don't like the railing like this. You could even go as far as to overriding this and making it transparent, whatever you want to do, just because we want to be able to see our actual stringer and dimension to our stringer. We can deal with all of this later. And with this, we can now dimension. So I'm going to take my width here, my width there. I'm going to pull this out, and that's good. I can also do the exact same thing over here. Now you might ask, well, we're missing some dimensions. Like, of course we are. We're going to make sure that we cover all of our bases here. So this is something else that I do that is very important to do, and because it will tell the contractor the number of risers and the width, because we don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. This is a nightmare. And trying organizing this is also a nightmare. So what would I typically do? Well, a lot of times I would use like a specific symbol or annotation detail component to where I can input. It's like an arrow and it shows the direction, whatever. I don't care so much about the direction because you can get the direction really easily from the sections. So I don't care about the direction as much as the number and the length of each tread, that kind of a thing. So I'll come in here and I'll actually override this, and I will replace this with text. So I will typically say how many risers it is. Well, how do we find that out? Well, I can end up tabbing to this particular stair run, and I can see, oh, look, that is, treads. That's 8 treads. And if we see here, we can see, okay, yeah, I'm going to override this specific dimension and replace with 8. And I like to put T. You could write treads, and then at, and basically how wide are they? They're 11 inches. And what does that equal? Well, the nice thing about doing it this way as opposed to typing it in yourself is that you don't have to figure out this length and then override something else. You can just override the dimension, and it tells you, well, I know this is 7 feet 4 inches. I just figured this out. I don't have to do the math myself. Revit's already done it for me. That's kind of the point here. And cool. So I press OK. And so again, what is this telling us? Well, we have 8 treads that are 11 inches wide, and that equals 7 feet 4 inches. Totally perfect. And I can do the exact same thing over here. My guess is that I have one more. So if I tab to this stair, I can see, hey, look, 9 treads. So I can come over here, 9 treads, and obviously copy this if you want to, at 11 inches equals, and then 8 foot 3. We have it right there. So cool. I like this. This is telling me everything I need to know. All right, so we've kind of captured the stair, but we need more than just that. We need to capture like the shaft and the opening and how much clear area we have and everything like that. So what do I like to do next? Well, a lot of times what I'll do is make this one string because it just makes sense that it can be. So I come in here, grab my end here, grab my end there, and of course I have an awful dimension there that we will worry about later. And then there we go. So both of them just like that. Okay, great. So we happen to have 4 1/4 inches here. That's totally fine. And this is, what is this telling me? So now I can see, yeah, I have each stair width, and then each stair width, both of them, and then I have the opening in the middle. I don't need to put open out. You could, don't need to worry about that. But so this dimension is all about the stair. And so now at this point, I want to make sure I capture the stair, but I want to take into account where the stair falls within the shaft. And so how do I do that? Well, I want to get the entire width that we just got, which is this number, that 8 1/4. But then I also want to get the edge of my actual opening, which I like at least 1/2 inch, and 1/2 inch is a solid number. So cool. That looks pretty good. I can drag these out so you can read it. And so what is this telling me? Well, this is telling me my total stair landing, total stair width is taking up that dimension. And then I have an extra 1/4 inch before I get to the edge of my wall. Great. Well, I need one final dimension, and that, of course, is my overall interior to my wall. And that's really important. And that is going to give me the actual clear area that I need. And so what do I like to do here? I like to make sure that I say that and make that clear right there. So this tells me I need my clear area of this to make this stair fit. All these dimensions work. I need that at least. Cool. Okay. But also, there's another way you can do this, and we'll get to that here. So when I want to basically do the exact same thing. So I've done this here, but I want to actually continue this dimension to capture the edge of the wall here. Now, this is obviously my landing, and so this is fine. That's good. What else do I need here? Well, I want the actual full stair width. So a lot of times what I'll do is I won't include this dimension there. I will just do it here. And again, I want to get that 1/2 inch, and I want to get basically the full length of my stair, of course, but then to the rest of the way of my opening there. And so again, because I haven't yet to receive the overall opening width, I can do it exactly right here. The overall opening will be this dimension right there. And you can see why I really need to use these thin lines. So there we go. And so what are we looking at here? Well, I'm not quite done yet because I need to put this clear, but this is not just clear. It is clear. We missed one because here, this is the distance here to there. That is my true stair opening, like the opening that I need. And so, you could do it this way to where this is clear, and then I override this to say opening. Well, I don't really like to do that because I have this 1/2 inch there. So again, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll absorb this 1/2 inch into a different dimension. So I'll actually add it to this first one. So I've got my 1/2 inch captured there, and then let's pull this out there. And then finally, instead of just going to the edge of my stair, I account for that 1/2 inch here so that this dimension, this clean 12'4", is my actual opening requirement. This is my opening that I need to make sure I have to get the stair to fit. That's really important too. So a lot of times what I would do is you can call this clear, it makes sense, but you can also do this too. It's a clear opening is really what it is. You have the clear width and it's an opening, so really do what you want. But you can see the difference here between something that's considered an opening that you need and clear. So cool, like this is really good. Now, one final thing I will say is just because of this example, I don't have grid lines, but let's say I have grid lines, and I'll just put them on this level because I need to have some grid lines to show you why we're doing this and what's going on. So here's my one, and then I'll just draw another one there to make sure this one's A or something like that, and then 1. So we'll drag this down, totally fine. Obviously, this is not how you put in grid lines the most efficient way. There are better ways. So cool, this looks good. We've got that there. Typically speaking, if this had a concrete column, it would be squared up. So for the sake of this, I'm just going to align this to the center of these, let's call them CMU bearing walls. That's typically really what they are. And so with that aligned, I'll align this one. And so what is important here? Well, what is important is tying down this opening. We said, here's the opening for the stair. Also, here is the clear opening for the entire shaft. So what do we do with that? Well, we need to tie that down to a grid line. So a lot of times what I do is I would take this overall clear dimension or this clear opening dimension and tie that to a grid line. So right here we could see I want to tie it to this one. So where is that opening compared to the grid line? I'll just edit this, add it there, and we're done. So this is what it is. And so we know all of these dimensions going that way in the Y direction are based off of this dimension from the grid line. And likewise, the exact same thing can happen here. Like that, all the way to 1, and cool. And then yes, it's the same because it's square and I did that on purpose. Cool, so that looks good. We're happy with that. That's what we expect to see. Now, we're not done because we need to do the exact same thing with this other stair run. Everything we did here. And just know it's going to be about the same, but just slightly different because of the tread. If I look at this here, obviously this is going to be the exact same dimension, the 12.4. So you can choose not to do that. And a lot of times I don't. I basically just leave it right here. And of course I don't need that 19.2.5 to clear because I already have that here. So I'm essentially done with dimensions here. And I like this. You can choose to locate the door if you want, but typically we have details that show how far the door is off the finish, and you don't need to dimension that necessarily. Cool. I mean, that looks good. Like you can see there's a lot of information here and a lot of information that you need to locate these stairs, not only in plan, but also vertically. And we've essentially done that in plan already just by using the grid lines, dimensioning everything out, and we're here. So a couple other things that we need to do. Obviously, I need just a basic stair path. And a lot of times this is going to be baked into the stair whenever you make it, but it may not. It might leave. And so I can just simply click here and we get what we need. Like that's totally what I need. I need to start rearranging some things here. And so that's fine. That's giving you the direction that you need. Not only that, but you can look in sections. So have some faith in your general contractors because they can read drawings, and this is going to help them understand it in plan, and then we'll get to it in section. So cool. What is left here? Well, obviously I have a standpipe here, and the question is, where does the section go in all of this? Well, the standpipe, I'm not going to go over the code about standpipes or whatnot, but so check that out on your own. A lot of times you'll see it over here on the landings. I've been putting it over here lately because of some other codes. It's definitely up to your code, so look at that. But in a case like this, where do our section marks go? Well, I like to have my section mark, my long, my wide section mark, to where I can see both stair runs. So I'm cutting through one and I can see the other one. I'm extended beyond the shaft itself. Cool. But another important thing is I want to be able to see the standpipe in both of my sections. And that's all. We can flip sections, we can do whatever we need to do, but how might I do this? Well, I can simply do this. I can move it to where this is easily centered within my standpipe, like there. I see everything I need to. It's all the same. And yeah, a little hard to read here with the dimension tags, but that's fine, easy to deal with. So when I come over here to my sheet, I can see that I actually have these stair standpipes modeled in. So please go find one if they're easy to find, or make one yourself. It's real easy. And all I would do here is go to region and probably draw just a basic region here just to extend the pipe. I am not going to draw and model in a pipe. I'm just not going to do it. It's a total waste of my time, and I would like to think that is also a waste of yours. So cool, look at this. Obviously make this white, or make it a masking region, whatever you want to do. And so you would want to continue this up. And so yeah, you get the idea. So basically make sure that you can see your standpipes in both of your sections. So I can't see it here. So let's go ahead and flip this one. I can flip it this way, and I want to extend it all the way there so I can see it. Go back to this and I can see, hey, look, yeah, there they are. Cool. I can track that up all the way. Cool. Great. All right. So now we're essentially done with this one, but one more thing we need to do is make sure that we maintain the stair width. And of course, another thing that I haven't talked about yet is handrails, and we'll get there again in just a second. So I need to make sure that I have my stair width that continues all the way around. And so typically what you would see is just a detail line. And most of the time, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to draw a detail line here. I'm going to come out, and this is not the way to do it, but I'm going to show you what typically I do and what I see a lot of people do first. They'll come to the edge here because this is where people are walking. They'll come to the edge there, and then they'll come out and say, all right, oh, whoa. And I did this a long time, which is why I'm bringing this up. Well, first of all, this distance is too wide. It's wider than, like, let's say our actual stair width, which is 311. That's important. We need to make sure this is 311. So then the next thing is like, oh, we'll just make this 311. Watch what happens when I do that. Well, now it's much too small. Now the distance is not 311. So what does the code actually say? Well, the distance that you need to maintain is the 311, but you not only need it there, which we have, but you need it from the corner, this corner right there, all the way to the edge, which is our stair width. And we don't have it. See, look, that's 3.7 and change. We don't have it. Well, so how do we do this? Well, we draw a detail line in a different way. And I typically don't use this, to be honest with you. This method of drawing arcs, and it's going to be this tool here, the center end arc. So basically I choose this, and let's go ahead and choose our center point. Well, like I said, we need to have at least our 3'11" from this point. So I can come out here and you can see the whole circle, and I can just go to the edge. There's my 3'11", and I can start to draw my arc. And look at this. It's going to line up beautifully with the edge right there. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing on this side. It's going to be really simple to do. 3'11" arc all the way here. So what's the main difference? Well, the main difference is that this dimension that I didn't account for is going to be this exact same dimension from the endpoint to the endpoint. Look at that. It lines up perfectly. And so typically this is going to be straight across. And I'm going to save this for a separate video later on. I've kind of found a way to automate some of these automate isn't the exact right word, but let's say make your life easier when it comes to certain things like this. So this is totally fine. I'm done with this. Now I need to do the exact same thing over here because I need to have the same thing. Continue this on 311. And so you could see if I continue this, that's just not going to work. So I'm going to just continue this flat right there. Do the exact same thing here, 311 all the way flat right there. And then I will just continue this all the way across flat. And so it's going to look arced, but it technically is arced, but then that flat portion is maintained because of my opening. So my 311 is maintained the whole time. So anything out here can happen. You can have the standpipe within this area, wherever it might be. So you could see the needs that we need to have, that everything that we need to have in a plan to actually have a stair properly documented. So this is like 90% of the way. It's totally fine. Like anyone can figure this out. But we haven't even dealt with handrails. And honestly, I can't say that I like handrails. No one does. Like they're awful. So a lot of times what I'll do is, like, this is a great example. It's not going to continue around. I can copy this up to the next level and it's going to look a little bit better. Of course, I don't want to copy that in the exact same place. I want to copy that up to the next level, which will be level 3 or 4, actually. And we can see there it is. So like this is a good start, but it doesn't continue around, whatever. So I don't have a great suggestion for you because I just don't like modeling rails. Obviously, we need to achieve the dimensions for rails. Okay, so I've gone to just the ridiculous task of putting in these railings. And what do we need to do here? Well, I can get away with this. I can say, all right, yep, we have this. And a lot of times what we do is just go to 12 inches. Whether you're going to the top or the bottom, if you make them 12 inches, then you're good to go. Because what that means is that you don't have to worry about anything else. You don't have to worry about the 11-inch tread or whatever it is. And you don't have to worry about returns, whatever. I would not worry about returns at all because that really ends up being a giant waste of time. And so with that, I have this dimension at 1 foot, totally great. And then I can do the exact same thing down here. I'm going to actually move this down right there, have this there, and then extend this just like that. And so a lot of times what I'll do is I'll stick with this, but I will go as far as to say, this is typical, and I'll even come over here and you can do 1 foot typical. You can put typical here at the end, that kind of a thing. And this means that I'm not going to dimension the other side. And debatably, you could probably get away with not doing this anywhere else, assuming they look the same. Now, I'm not that risk averse because I want to make sure I do handle this, and because it's really important to have. This is a huge issue. It can be. So with that, I'm essentially done with this. I'm good to go. I don't have to deal with any dimensions here. I'm good, and I can translate this stuff up. So how would I do that? Well, let's say easily. Well, because the stair changes slightly, I'm going to get into some trouble. But a lot of times I'm going to get lucky, and this actually the next level is totally 100% the same. So something you can do is start by copying everything. And because we're going to the exact same stair, we can copy things. And well, what can we copy? Well, I would copy things that are not tied to the stair at all. And that's going to be these few things. I have my overalls. I have, these annotations, things like that. That's really kind of the main thing that we can do. So I can copy this, come over here. I know this is the exact same. And then I can just simply paste this aligned to current view. And look at that. Look at this great start. It even adjusted these elevations. So I'm really good to go. This is a good start. Now, obviously, I need to change some things here because my stair adjusted a little bit. That's things I can do later on. And in fact, I'm not going to go to the trouble of documenting this entire thing. But what I want to do now is move on to sections because this is really important. We obviously know this is incorrect. We'll deal with that later, of course, too. So looking at the section, again, what is most important about a section? Well, we talked about the standpipe. That's totally fine. Mask region, that's fine. Do that yourself. But what else is important? Well, not a ton. It is dimensioning, obviously, treads, risers, elevations, things like that. We already talked about that. So what do we need to worry about? Well, I'll tell you, the only thing that I really end up documenting is the dimensions for my risers and the overall between each landing. So I'm not going to do this because I did this already in my stair plan. I'm not going to do this. Like I've already done this. We come over here, we have our 28. We come over here, we have our 28. We did that already. So I'm not going to do that again. But what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to actually dimension. And just like I did the risers, I'm going to go straight to each landing. Only the landings. Only the landings. And we can do this for ultimately every level, but this is a good start. So what are we doing here? Well, I can see that I've got different elevations to hit. And honestly, I didn't even do this correctly. So this elevation, or this stair landing, you might have to adjust this too, is going to be at a different you're going to need a different view range. So I'm going to uncheck this, which means I want these view range to work independently. So, and why do I say that? Well, I need to capture this landing in my stair plane. I haven't done that. I've only captured this first one, level 1, 0 right there, and not anything else. And so I'd have one plan here looking down, and then I'd have one plan here looking down, or even one plan here looking down, so I can capture this. I might do it that way, and then so I can cut there, and then there, and then that, just consistently all the way up. So that's kind of up to you, but just make sure there's a plan that shows every landing. So totally fine, however you want to do it. So, okay, we'll deal with that later too. That's not a huge deal, but for the purposes of this video, let's look at this now. So like I said before, we needed over here to capture the specific number of treads and their dimensions, and I didn't want to have to do that individually. Likewise, I don't want to do this. Like, this is awful. I never want to see this. Hope you don't have to do it, because look, these numbers are terrible. They're really terrible. And so what do we do here? Well, we're going to do the exact same thing. But I need two things. Obviously, I need the number of risers, and then I need the dimensions of the risers, because that will change sometimes per stair run, but definitely usually per stair. And so I can tab to this particular run, and I can see, okay, look, actual number of risers is 12. Okay. And then what is this? Well, actual riser height, and that is obviously 6, whatever. It's 6 3/4, 6 7/8. It's less than 7 is the point. We need that less than 7 or 7. But what do we need to do? Well, what I like to do is just come in here, and for my sanity, make sure I have 1/8 in my dimensions, and you come over here and see, okay, look, that is 6 7/8. Cool. So what is this now going to be? Well, we're going to override this with 12 risers, or however you want to delineate that, at how high is this? Well, it is 6 7/8 inches each. And you can write out each, you can do that. And what does that equal? Well, that equals this value right there, which is totally what we have. We can copy and paste that in. That's perfect. Remove some extra spaces, and good. That's it. So what did we just do? Well, I can delete that. I have now said that there are 12 risers between here and here to this landing. That is the difference in the elevation. And each of those risers is at 6 7/8 inches each. Great. That's great. And so what's going to match up, ultimately we get up here, is if you add these up, it's going to get to my overall distance. Ultimately, whenever I add it up, I'm going to get to level 3, and that's going to be 28. And look, we see 3, 28 there. So we've captured this every way. And so I'm going to do this exact same thing. And how do we see these? Well, there's always a nice little place that I can grab that stair runner right there, and I can see, yep, they're the exact same number. I have the exact same there, and I can literally just copy this again. Another way to know is that if it's the same stair run, I have the same dimension here and there. Great. Very good stuff. So again, just copy this whole thing, paste it here, and you're good to go. Now, this is something you'll have to deal with. The way you present this, that's up to you. I'm going to leave it here for now. But then finally, this last one is slightly different. I know my riser height's the same, but I actually just have 6. So it is basically the same thing, but instead of 12, I have 6. They're at the same height each, but then I have a new dimension there. So this is so easy to do, and it saves so much time doing it this way. So like I said, you're going to have to deal with the way you want to do this, because we can do it like this. Equals, we can bring this down if we want, which probably makes more sense to do, to something like this. Like, this is what you can do. That's one example. There's a lot of ways you can break it up, but cool. And so I'll do one more thing when it comes to these sections, and that is just the overall level to level, because that's the same thing, whereas if you were to add up all of these numbers, you're going to get that overall. And I know it tells you here, but a lot of times your levels are not exactly where you want them, starting at 0. They might be starting from 100 or 101, 101.5. Like, you never know. So going from level to level is great. I want to definitely continue this on all the way up, that type of a thing. Very easy to do. And then likewise, we can continue this exact string, making sure that we hit each and every landing. Now, the cool thing is that, of course, once we do get to the point where we start to get to these switchbacks that are the exact same, you can see, look, these dimensions are the same, these are the same, and it's so easy to just copy and paste these things up. It's really easy to do. And likewise, I'm not even going to go over this other one because it's the exact same. Now, this is harder to see, but it's a different view. It's giving you can give overall widths if you want, but I do not end up giving overall widths here because I've given them here specifically. I've given them there at each level. And again, of course, it's going to change. Obviously, at this 5th level, things will change for sure. So that's important to note as well. So there were a lot of things that we looked in this video. We looked at taking a stair into like a template and what that template could look like. And then we did the exact same thing with sections, the naming and all that's so important. Obviously, model the rails if you want to. If not, this can be an annotation. Like, I actually never model rails like this. I also don't dimension rails in sections. That's something else to be aware of. We also looked at aligning these views, making it look presentable, and then we look specifically at how to dimension and show a stair in plan, because it's going to change based on the stair you have. But there are a lot of things that you need to make sure you have, and we covered that all here with looking at the stair runs and the tread runs and tread dimensions and number of treads, things like that. Obviously, you can see we lost a dimension there. So simple to bring back, that type of thing. So cool. Like, this is looking really good, and it's a good place to start, if nothing else. Make sure you have your clear openings delineated and your actual openings delineated so the contractor knows where that opening is. I know that structure, if you're lucky, you have a structure, and they'll be able to tell you that too, and it will all match up. But just in case it doesn't, this is a way to define your stairs within a particular space. And then we looked at it in section. What we want to get there is, again, it's always the same thing. We want to capture elevations and dimensions, and we did that here very simply, just by capturing the number of risers and their dimensions. And we carry that all the way up, and we're done. Obviously, if you have other things like plumbing, whatever to be aware of, cool. This is a great place to determine if you have the head heights available, that you need to have the 80 inches at least for a stair like this. Great for sections. And yeah, that's going to do it for this video. I would recommend you stick around and watch the next one, which would be taking this but to the next level. In a way, we're going to like automate this to a degree in a few different ways. I specifically want to look at making rails easier to document because I don't want to model them. And so how can we avoid modeling them? Well, we can use some particular 2D elements that will help get us there. That's really important too. Also, we want to automate this a bit more. You know, I don't want to have to type this in every time, and Revit already knows this information. So how do we get Revit to tell us what it is and change that? Well, yeah, stick around for the next video because you're going to like that. It's going to be really helpful when you're documenting tons of stairs where you have runs and risers and, you know, everything that you need to make sure you dimension, of course. So if you enjoyed this video or learned something, please demolish that like button. It really helps me out quite a lot. Also tells me that you might have learned something. I know it's a bit messy, but once you clean this up, you're going to be well on your way to not only understanding, but really documenting, making some nice looking stairs. It's going to make a big difference if you can get to this point at least. So also, if you did enjoy this and like this kind of content, consider subscribing. It helps me out quite a lot too. All right. I will see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day, and thank you very much for watching.